Andreas from Andreas Embodiment. How you going?
I am so well, thank you, Phil.
I have to say, like viewer on YouTube, hello, but I have to say, look at the size of that cup. Like that's enormous.
Yeah, it's almost bigger than my head.
And there's only one tea bag in it.
I did contemplate putting two in there, but I was like, oh, I don't want to be overly caffeinated today.
It's like the real heart starter. So yeah, I've got this enormous mug, which I thought was big enough too. But I don't know how you are there, viewer, but certainly I'm like I just maybe if I hold it closer to the screen,
It's not about the
uh
size, Phil. It's not
well it
about the
is.
size.
It is. I'm making it about the size. When it comes to a refreshing caffeinated beverage, size matters. So yeah, all right. Andreas, had I known this, I would have rethought the invitation. Yeah. Well, but first of all, I want to get into this because Jeff is a graduate architect. There's so many things in our house that are like, we're sort of thinking about designing and all that kind of stuff. My
Mhm.
immediate thought, thank you, Jeff, has been like, how do you store that? How do you store those mugs?
Oh,
Like, how big are the cupboards in your
you don't want to
kitchen?
know where I store this mug. It just goes with all the other mugs, and it's just part of them all. They're all little family. It's great.
Is
Yep.
it like one of those like Russian dolls that mugs go within that mug?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
you do definitely put a mug inside of this one.
Right. And socks and all that kind of stuff. Like,
And my secrets, they will go in here.
Excellent. What a handy handy beverage receptacle that is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. You good to go?
Yes,
All
I'm
right.
very good to go.
Viewer, I hope you're good to go too. I'm really just so glad that you've joined again for another episode of Connection Over Coffee. We're going to get into it, but I just simply want to say this in the podcast intro. I mention how so many people say to me in my work how difficult they have, how their relationship with themselves, with their physical selves, is a really difficult topic for them. There's a whole lot of reasons, which I'm sure we'll get into this with Andreas, but I'm really happy to present this episode to you because this is like, your body is the only body that you will ever have. And how we can begin within ourselves and as a community to improve our relationship with ourselves, our physical selves, not just our mental selves and our emotional selves through working through loneliness. It's really important. So I think I might save that for when I press record because that seems like an awesome intro as well. But I'm really glad that you're here, viewer. It's fantastic. So whether your cup size is like, you've got an espresso like shot, or you can swim in your cup of tea like Andreas can. Either way, I'm really glad that you're here. All right. So we're good to go on the recording.
Lovely.
Andreas from Andreas Embodiment, welcome to Connection Over Coffee.
Thank you, Phil, for having me. I'm so stoked to be here.
And viewer and listener, I have to say that he's stoked already beyond or before like the effects of the ocean-sized cup of tea that he has have really kicked in. So I feel like things are going to get really awesome in about half an hour after the caffeine has seeped into his marrow. Um,
This is a two-handed job.
it's like I think we just need a sippy cup, perhaps. But yes, I'm just leaving the two-handed job, to go through to sail right on through because my mind is racing in many different directions on this. But
Oh, yeah.
Andreas, I'm just so happy to have you here on this podcast for a couple of reasons. First is that we can have such a tough, I was about to say terrible, like a really horrible, potentially relationship with our physical self, with our body, for a whole lot of reasons, which I'm sure we're going to go into. But one of the things that one of the almost commonalities, but it's mentioned so frequently, is that the gay and queer men in my audience often have a really fraught relationship with their physical selves. So I'm really keen to get your thoughts and insight and expertise on this. But
Mm.
secondly, I'm really glad to have you on the podcast because you're in Canberra. And well,
Yes,
Cooma technically, but the capital
technically.
region. And so it's just fantastic to be able to speak to someone locally and to help amplify your voice and your awesomeness to, a global audience. It really like it's fantastic. There's so many people, so many amazing people that I get to talk to through my work, but it's so great to have someone who shares a postcode.
Yeah.
And so yeah, welcome. Enough from me. Can you tell us something about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I remember on when I just somehow found you on Instagram, and then I was like, oh my gosh, he's in Canberra. My whole like body lit up, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's someone else in Canberra that's doing this stuff. So I totally share that. It's like it's beautiful. It's community. It's important for the people, for the men, for the queer community of Canberra and the surrounding area. What can I say about myself? I'm Andreas from my business, Andreas Embodiment, and I work with gay, queer, and bisexual men to drop them deeply into their bodies through a beautiful practice known as tantric embodiment. What is tantric embodiment? It is basically learning how to safely feel the feelings and all of the things that are going on in your beautiful body. But it's not just on the physical plane. The work that we do is about your mental self, which is important for that clarity, that vision, but then into your physical body and also into your sexuality. And that's where the tantric work comes in because sexual energy is such a massive life force. It's such a massive motivator. And as all of us could attest to, it is a huge influence on us and our experience of the world.
Mm,
And so there's not a lot of safe spaces to explore that in a way which is slow, intentional, intimate, and non-expecting. And so embodiment work is all about dropping into the physical, the emotional, the sexual, and even the spiritual, if that's part of your resonance,
mm.
so that you can, go to the beach and be comfortable to take your top off, so that you can attract the right man into your life, or, even as simple as like walking out of your door every morning and knowing that you're like living on purpose with what you want to do.
Mm. I love that because you say on purpose.
Mhm.
And in my work, I say that's living in alignment,
Yeah.
where words, thoughts, and actions all align. And our words and thoughts align with our values. Our words and thoughts align with what we know to be true about ourselves. Um, and there's a question here that I want to ask, and I'll just sort of pause there to make sure that I was asking it in a way that wasn't going to lead you to the answer that I wanted to hear, but I'd like, well, lead you to the answer that I suspect that you're going to give me. Um, but one of the things that this is coming up for me is like, just how hard is that to do when you're
Mm.
gay, bi, trans, a human who
Yeah.
who's attracted to other men.
Mm.
Like, how hard is that, do you feel? In a very leading way, that question.
I feel like it is. It's actually it is hard,
Mm.
and yet at the same time, it doesn't have to be as hard as we think it is. So as people of the rainbow family, we we had a tough time, growing up with all of the shame and all of the uncertainty around ourselves, especially around our body and around our genitals and how all of that was happening, and it wasn't happening the way it was meant to happen, right? Um, and so there's a lot of like conditioning and upbringing that makes it even tougher and makes that challenge there. But I really like to think of this embodiment, or, to phrase that in another way, of like getting comfortable in your own body. That is really a lifelong journey. It's not something that you just fix or tick the box and then you've done that thing and you don't have to return to it again because you've like remedied it.
Yeah.
It is a lifelong practice, and it's not about fixing anything. It's actually about like getting so safe in your body that you can feel your uncertainty around it. You can feel your shame around it or your self-deprecating thoughts around it. But the other piece around that is when you kind of connect into something bigger than just your body, and you start to like, well, what is my body? My body is my vessel for my life. It's my tool to walk around this planet with. Without it, I literally wouldn't exist.
Yeah.
And so when you kind of connect into something bigger than just like your crammed thoughts around your body, it helps to just like take the pressure off, because you can put your body into perspective. To get a little bit esoteric here, like you can connect into how your body houses your soul, man, and how your soul wouldn't have got the wrong body. Your soul doesn't choose the wrong body. So it is hard. It is a journey, but it's one that you can absolutely do. And with grace and patience and a sense of commitment to yourself, it's so doable and so possible.
Awesome answer. And as you sort of dive into your tea for just a moment to let that sink in. But listener, the viewer on the podcast just witnessed Andreas like fill the screen, fill his little part of Zoom there when he was talking about how, we can step in to our body, how, and that point about how it is not a mistake that our souls are in our body. Sorry,
Mm.
our souls are in our bodies, not multiple souls in one body. There, language matters. But yeah, I was just sort of observing Andreas. Andreas, I was observing you as you were doing that. And you were like just really like living, I want to say embody, but you were living what you were just saying in this most kind of languid way that, the I wanted to make sure that the person listening on the podcast could actually, I wanted to highlight that there was a lot of non-verbal communication going on there.
Ah.
And like he's like he kind of just like swelled up as you were demonstrating what you were saying. It was
Gorge.
awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, definitely a two-handed. But yeah, it really, yeah, it was awesome to see. It was like it was beautiful to see that, almost, you've got a jacket on there now, and you almost sort of like, shed the jacket, just by, just through the demonstration, the physical demonstration of what you were saying. It's really powerful.
Thank you for really just witnessing that. I'm really feeling that and receiving that.
Good. Good. Thank you for thanking me, but also thank you for sharing, like for just doing that, for
Mm.
doing that. Um, so I'm really curious. So we're in Canberra, public service town, government town. People, often do their jobs because they did a law degree at university or did commerce at university or I don't know, some kind of public policy post-grad or something like that to work in government. And, if they're not working in government, they might, be tradespeople or whatever it is. I'm really curious, how did you get to be and like how did you get to be Andreas from Andreas Embodiment? What was the, some of the journey that you I hate using that word, but how did you get to be where you are now?
Mm. I love the word journey. So yay for journey. Don't
It
stop
just feels
believing.
feels to me like it's just overused
True.
in terms of like something from Australian Idol or America's like your journey here like from Survivor or something like that. It's like no like
Yeah.
had yeah. So that just sort of the discomfort in myself is using that because it's just like associated with Australian Idol or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah.
The journey that I have been on I've got a confession. I was a public servant for close to 5 years, actually. I started as a glorified paper pusher,
Yes.
earning a lot of money to do that. And then uh, in a previous life, I have a design degree and I was a town planner for the ACT government. And I absolutely loved it, except what I call that is a shadow calling, in that it lights you up to a degree and you're passionate about the thing and you're knowledgeable about the thing. I was knowledgeable about it and I still love it.
Yeah.
But yet every day I would go to work and I would just feel like a part of me was dying. Maybe it was being in the pod or whatever it was. This was very pre-pandemic. No one was working at home.
Yeah.
And so about it, I mean, I still did it though. I still did it for nearly 5 years, but I got to the point where I was like in my mid-20s or something. And I was like, I can't do this. I'm dying every day that I go to work. I'm sad. I'm depressed. I'm not myself. And it kind of had to get to the point, what it was? Like, I just had a phone call from the most Karen-y Karen you could ever have. And then I literally cried. And I was like, that was the catalyst. I'm done. And it got to the point where it was too painful to continue.
Mm.
But deep inside me, I knew it wasn't it. I was built for more. There was something inside of me that wanted to give back in a way that was beyond what I could do in the public service. It just was like wanting to explode inside of me. And at the time, that was yoga. So I've had a very robust yoga practice since I was about 16 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the reason I started doing yoga was because I was a fat kid. I was overweight. The heaviest I've ever been in my entire life to date was when I was 14 years old. And so as a man, I'm still under the weight I was then. And the reason I'm saying that is because that kid really has been part of the journey that I have had into body acceptance and into all of the stuff that I do now, because yoga helped me to start moving my body and start to feel comfortable in my body. And yeah, I even dropped a few pounds as well, because that's why I got into it when I was a kid. I wanted to do the next thing. I tried the Pilates, I tried the Michelle Bridges course. I did all the things, right? And eventually I started to just kind of shift slowly out of what I was doing. And slowly, over a period of another 5 years, I started to become more and more and more into the space that I am in now, the tantric space, the coaching space. I've had a lot of my own sexual hangups, as many of us do, whether it be performance anxiety, erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation. I've had them all. And I was also trying to understand how sexuality fit into this spiritual world of yoga that I had become so, I had journeyed so deeply. I was a yoga teacher. I was doing the thing, hustling at the studios, right? And that led me into the self-inquiry towards Tantra. So if you're not familiar, like if you're listening or watching this and you're not familiar with Tantra, Tantra comes from a very similar place, a similar philosophy as yoga. The way that I like to differentiate the two is that yoga, like, is the path of yoga is to kind of like start in the body and then move slowly into the subtle, like you're moving beyond the body. You go closer towards like the ethereal, the meditation, the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Tantra is the opposite. We actually go deep down into the body, into the pleasure, into the pain, into the things that make us human, and we find our essence, our connection to something, whatever it is, God, spirit, whatever word relates to you, openness, community, the universe. We do that by going deep into the body and deep into the sensations. So there came a point where I was like, I'm not meeting people in yoga as deeply as I know that they are craving and yearning to be met. And I think that was because sexuality wasn't part of the conversation within the yoga space.
Mm.
And especially for LGBTQ plus people, sexuality is really freaking important to us. It's part of our identity. It's not everything, but it's certainly part of it. And so that's when I started to pull all the tantric work from my private life, my private healing, into the work that I do. And over the years, that's been refined into what Andreas Embodiment is now. Yeah, and it feels good. I'm 6 years down the track, and it's taken quite a long time to get there. And the reason I'm saying that is that it wasn't an overnight like thing. It really was a journey.
Yeah, I'll allow journey in this instance. That's just really, really beautiful. And again, for the listener, a whole lot of non-verbal communication, I want to say corporeal communication is going on, where yeah, and it totally makes sense. Yoga instructor, being able to use your body in a way that sort of fluid and very ease. Like the word that's coming up is with ease.
Mm.
But if I can, Andreas, I'm curious to find out what part on reflection did loneliness
Mm.
or disconnection do you feel played in you sort of leaving the shadow purpose? And I wonder, the purpose of what you think you should be doing,
Mm.
and or what you believed you should be doing, and how loneliness was used, or was it used as like essentially a bridge
Mm.
to get you from, being a town planner for the ACT government, which is the local government here in Canberra. It's part of the Australian Capital Territory, um, and into Andreas Embodiment.
Mm. Yeah. You know what came to me, which feels edgy for me to share actually, is that I have been so deeply lonely, and especially in when I'm, well, to be honest, like it's been my whole life, you know. And when I was a public servant, I I had my office gal pals and my biffle, like my pod buddy. I had all of that, sure. But at the same time, if it isn't apparent by now, I'm a pretty deep guy. Like I like spiritual stuff. I like the esoteric. I like the void. I like the mystery. You know, that's where I find my solace. And I just felt like I was operating on the kind of the most superficial layer of conversation that I possibly could when I was in those environments, because they weren't my environments. You know, they might be someone else's. You know, maybe the listener has that exact environment and they love it and they thrive in that place, and that's beautiful. But for me, it really wasn't. And uh, coupled with I've had a lot of trauma around sex and intimacy, and I didn't have lots of boyfriends growing up. I didn't sleep around heaps. I wasn't on the grind to train very much. Like I wasn't hooking up a lot. And part of that loneliness was that yearning to be able to be seen and to connect intimately with somebody and have a man hold me and to hold a man and to breathe together and to go down to the mall and hold hands. You know, like there was that part of loneliness deep inside me. And truly, like being real with myself, I know that part of the reason I got into the work that I do is because I was yearning to connect so deeply and intimately with men that I started to create a container, a reason, a something for me to be able to do that. And um and now it's like I'm really just asking myself in this moment, am I lonely? And I still am in other ways. You know, I don't think loneliness goes away. And I actually have those boxes, the relationship, the hand holding, the sex, I have those boxes ticked, so to speak, now. Um, and yet I've moved back to my hometown temporarily to support and be supported and live with my parents who I haven't lived with for 9 years. And that's a whole nother layer of loneliness because I'm the black sheep in the family. They're all running a small business and I'm here doing this. I don't feel seen and understood in the same way that I did when I was in Canberra, living in Canberra, because I travel up to Canberra very frequently to do the stuff I do. And that's a whole new layer of loneliness. So yeah, loneliness has absolutely been a fundamental, if not the fundamental reason why why I created the business that I have and offer the support I do.
Did that just occur to you?
Yeah, partly. I've reflected on the piece around like the yearning for connection with other men, but I'd never realized that like that was loneliness. You know, I'd never actually like it kind of just hit me, you know. I was like, ooh, oh crap. Oh no, not the vulnerability. Like, no. Not Phil seeing into my soul.
And it's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you for holding that space.
It always is a privilege. It is always a privilege and an honor to create and hold the space. All you needed to do was step into it.
Absolutely. So true.
Andreas, I invite you to do one thing. So can you put your arms like pointing towards the screen, please? Yeah. Can you look down at your arms?
Okay, I look like a zombie.
Just look at just look at your arms. Twist them around. Twist them around. And what do you notice?
The first thing I noticed was a scratch on my forearm, and it's probably from my cat. And I'm noticing the hairs and the color of my skin. I'm noticing the freckles and the lines in my palms. And now I'm noticing like the fine hairs that I didn't see before, the ones that are a little bit blonder and a little bit thinner. I'm Greek, so I've got hair. And now I'm noticing the crease of my elbows and my biceps. Um, yeah.
You know what I noticed? Like what you're noticing?
Mm.
You're still here.
Mm.
You're still there. In
I
all of
am.
in all of like your glory, like your goodness, like your body. One of the things, and we were talking about this offline,
Mm.
we can spend such a long time when we think that we kind of sort of maybe, just possibly, but might be experiencing a little bit of loneliness, just a twinge of loneliness, and go, oh shit, do more, do more work, work out, drink more, party more, have sex more to avoid
Yeah.
it. And so when we come to that point where we realize that it hasn't worked and loneliness is still right there, that we can meet our loneliness from a place of utter exhaustion
Mm.
because we've just been spending years, like potentially our life, running,
Yeah.
literally,
Absolutely.
figuratively, or whatever. And we fear that moment outside of like admitting our loneliness, talking about it for a few moments, that like life will stop.
Yeah. It's
So
so
I
true.
wanted you to look at yourself. Like, you're still,
Mm.
you're even more awesome.
It's
Like,
such a beautiful exercise to just ground you back.
yeah,
I felt myself kind of landing back into my chair.
yeah.
Mm.
So this is, I mean, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. It is oftentimes we've explored a bit of our loneliness, but then in talking about it, we have that realization about, oh shit, this is happening now.
Mm.
Right.
Yeah.
But one of the things here that I invite you to consider, Andreas, but also listener, viewer, is not only like you recognized that part of your journey of like away from the pod farm in a government office to create Andreas Embodiment was the yearning for more connection. You recognized that part of you, like you essentially like took some of your soul out as you swiped into your office. And, you recognize that. And you may not have recognized it as loneliness, but that whole, I'm dying inside.
Yeah.
Like you're not being you, you're not connected to you. And you recognize that, may not have had the words that I've just said, but you recognize that and wanted to move into a space where you could be more you, to explore
Yeah.
spaces to be more you, and then to do you and be you in the world. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there was that little bit, and you knew that. You knew that. But then there was that part of you who hadn't felt that second part of your story there, your share there, your
Mm.
brave, courageous, beautiful share.
Mm.
The share that was a privilege to witness.
Mm. Thank you. Because
there's power in that.
Oh, 100%. There's like clarity in that, and there's an ownership in that. I think owning the truth is one of the first steps to be able to sit with the truth. And, when you own the truth, all of a sudden it like depowers it. It doesn't make it as scary anymore, because you're like, I feel this way. I have this sensation in my body. I've got this thing, this fear, whatever it is. And when you stop resisting that, which is what you were speaking about before, which is this like distraction piece, which we are very good at doing, distracting ourselves by being busy and doing the things. It's like, this is embodiment. This is just sitting with it, with feeling it and meeting what is with the truth, with your love, with your presence, to be able to feel it out, give it a moment to just breathe. And it just takes that sting off it. It makes it, you're able to work with it in a new way.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. That's such a beautiful way of putting it. And this goes to the point, like, great things can happen when we stop and own what is happening within us. So whether it's our loneliness, whether it's our sexuality, like, the first step to coming out of the closet is owning your own sexuality.
Yeah. Coming out to yourself is like the hardest and first bit.
Yep. So as it is with coming out, in terms of our sexuality, so it is with loneliness.
Yeah.
We need to come out as lonely, and then that takes the sting out of it. It moves the power away from us, or something that we run from, and something that we can actually use to propel us.
Yeah, exactly.
When we sit with it, we learn from it, all that. But also, when we're not aware of it, loneliness is such a powerful behavioral driver.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we can flip the language away from loneliness to the need for connection, the need for belonging is such a powerful behavioral driver. And it is, it will be for you as it is for me.
Yeah, I really want to talk about sex for a minute.
Please.
So before, you were just sharing about how like loneliness is such a key driver, or the need. I love how you reframe that. The need for connection is such a core driver that we really could not, like, we may be aware of it, or we really may not be aware of it, like not identifying it as that's what's driving us. And immediately what came up to me is sex and intimacy, connection, the way that we try and relate. And I'm going to use the context of gay men, and I'm going to generalize, and I know the experience isn't the same for everyone. So I just want to preface that, but this is one of the reasons why gay men have a lot of sex potentially, or are looking for a lot of sex, and maybe they're having it, or maybe they're not. But there's like a lot of sex going on in the gay community, the gay space, and so much lack of connection, because the core driver behind the behavior of like going onto Grindr, for example, or Scruff, and like who's in the, like, who is most proximal to me, who is the closest fuck right now. And with that behavior, no shame on it, but with that behavior, there's this like, I'm like horny. That's, you think, oh, I'm just horny, I just want to lay, whatever. But actually, there's most likely that part of you that's like actually learning. It wants more. It wants to be seen. It wants to be held. It wants to connect. It wants to have a conversation with somebody. And that's why it doesn't feel fulfilling. That's why you walk away and you're like, well, now I feel like a piece of shit. Or, oh, well, that was, I guess that was something, right?
Next.
Better flip the app back on again, like, because that didn't scratch anything, because that core desire to connect hasn't been fulfilled.
Yeah. I say that if you leave a hookup feeling emptier than when you went in, it wasn't that itch that needed scratching.
Yeah, exactly. You were looking for something deeper, baby.
Yeah.
And that realization, the ownership of that is so powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. And it goes to that point that we were talking about. I can't remember if it was, there's been so much awesomeness, like awesome bombs going off left, right, and center in this chat. I can't remember if it was like after we've pressed record
Right.
or before. But it speaks to like to get that kind of deeper connection, the physical, mental, emotional, social depths that we need to feel in our very core that we belong.
Mm.
That requires the V word.
Yes, it does.
Right?
Yeah.
And we can want to do vulnerability, just to be clear, listener, viewer, that's the V that I was talking about.
I thought you meant Viagra.
Yeah.
Oh.
So many fun V words, but there are like we can want to hijack or shortcut or do vulnerability safely.
Yeah.
And if we try and do vulnerability safely, the connection that we get from it isn't going to, likely, it could, likely, it won't get to the depths that you need.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you when you said that, like, do you think that being vulnerable can ever be super comfortable?
No.
Yeah, me neither. It's always fucking scary.
Yeah.
And it should be, because that's what connects you to the other person that's sitting across from you.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. This is like it crudely, if vulnerability is not shit your pants scary, it's not vulnerable.
Mm.
But also conversely, so we can, essentially not be vulnerable enough. And then on the other side, we can use vulnerability as a way of hacking, like shortcutting deep, intimate connection,
Mm.
where that becomes like the overshare. It's like, I've known you for a few moments. I feel safe and seen around you. I'm going to tell you everything.
Mm. Mm.
And I call that, in terms of the loneliness, be aware of the loneliness vomit.
Mm.
Because essentially what you're doing is, I've heard it now being called as trauma bonding,
Yeah.
but also, I call it the loneliness vomit.
Yeah, the way that I relate to that, and I think that's such a powerful, like, that's just,
Yeah.
like, there's something really juicy in that. And from the embodiment perspective, the way I would relate to that, like, that happens because you're not in your feet, you're not in your body. Like, you're probably like hovering around in your head or in your anxious mind. And that's what's causing that, like, Lindsay Lohan word vomit, I would say, like Mean Girls
Yeah.
word vomit.
Yes.
Um, because is when you take a moment to just be in your body and to breathe and to like take a moment like you did when with me when you like made me look at my
Mm-hmm.
arms, it's like all of a sudden you're slowing down a little bit and you're like connected in, and then that need just isn't there because you're only going to share from a place that's like more like it's more grounded, and you'll share from that place.
Yep. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And yeah, it really, I'm keen to get your view on this.
Hmm.
But for me, like vulnerability requires time.
Yes, definitely.
Investment,
Mm.
showing up, showing that, the relationship, the person, the people, and that includes ourselves, are worthy of that time and investment and commitment to showing up.
Mm.
Because then that kind of creates a very coachy term here, that creates the container for that truth as it is in the present to live.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I think that vulnerable, like speaking your truth and like opening up your heart to be seen, which is another way of phrasing vulnerability,
Yeah.
is your body will naturally know when to do that when you have developed that safety with somebody else over a period of time. And if that safety isn't there, then I don't feel like you'd get the impulse. You wouldn't get the scratch that makes you go, oh shit, I don't want to do that. You wouldn't get that.
Yeah.
But when you get that scratch that's like, oh, nah, I'm not going to do that, even though I have got the impulse and the desire to do that, then I feel like that would, when you're like connected to your body, that would create the truth. Well, it does create the truth.
Yeah. That's such a wise thing. It like and I've heard this said a couple of times, and I'm really keen to get your take on this.
Mm,
But some previous guests
hmm.
have said, and one who's coming to mind is Craig Cassie from the US, who also does some embodiment work.
I
But
should know him. I will look at him.
yeah, he's fantastic. Hey Craig, if you're listening. But what I want to say, what I want to ask is, you've used these words a couple of times, and I love them, where you said your body will let you know
Mm,
when it feels safe or it's right
mm,
to say, to be vulnerable, to open up, to let your heart be shown.
mm.
Sometimes, and this is, goes right back to the beginning of our conversation, the recorded conversation, all time before that ceased. But where the premise of our conversation was about how many in the audience, many of the gay and queer men in the audience, have a relationship with themselves that at best could be called complicated. At what the extreme of it is like dissociated, like I
Yeah.
absolutely have no relationship with my body.
Yeah.
Do you see that too?
All the time. All the time. And it makes sense. It's to be that way. There's so much pressure that we've copped from growing up that I think hangs around into our adult life as queer, gay, bisexual men, transgender. And it it makes sense. Of course, so many people feel that way because it hasn't been safe to be in our body. It hasn't been safe to be who we are. It hasn't been safe for us to just be like deeply in our body as who we are, right? That was wrong. So, of course, we have that. And if I can sort of move into like, well, what do we do about it? You know,
Yeah.
then really what comes to mind is, well, one pillar that I would love to just preface with it is just patience and compassion, because those two things, like love is necessary to be able to hold yourself in this process. But love is like, but ultimately, this is once again about vulnerability. And it's like that journey of coming into your body and being able to like take your shirt off in front of the mirror and just look at yourself, that is an edge. It is an edge point along your path, right? And it's always gonna suck to get up to that edge point, but it doesn't mean you can't do it. So I teach naked yoga in Canberra every other Monday, right? Every single man, including myself, who has walked into that studio and dropped their dacks for the first time, dropped their pants for the first time, taken their top off, taken their underwear off, has been so shit scared. But there's a moment in the nude yoga studio when you're standing at the storage cubes, about to take your underwear off, where you like take a deep breath in, you're like, oh, fuck, like I'm doing this. And then you just do it. And it sucks and it's scary, but then you've done the thing. And then that's when the magic happens, because you've done that step, and the rest, it's all going to get easier from there. But I would never sugarcoat what my truth is around this. And this comes from all the work that I support men in doing, and for my own true story of getting real with my own body, was that I just had to get deeply uncomfortable for a moment to get over the hurdle, to start to open up to possibility of what is on the other side of that.
Mm.
Mm. What do you think, though? I'm curious as to your experience of that.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And don't look now, but there are so many similarities in how you described that the dropping of the DAX moment, that discomfort, but
yeah,
the amazingness that happens on the other side. Of the amazingness that we allow ourselves to, that we expose ourselves to. And I don't mean physically expose ourselves, but like emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and perhaps physically expose ourselves to on the other side of that. So it is, in how you described, in that moment, is what you experienced. And listener, viewer, what you experience when you own your loneliness. I just wanted to, like, when you're at your edge is always uncomfortable. Your edge is always like, oh God, and you said it before, Andreas, about, I'm feeling at my edge when you were talking about your loneliness.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And like, I think the main reason I was able to then move into and share that very vulnerable story, where I was like, what the hell is everyone listening and watching this going to think about me if I share this truth? Like, that was the fear in me. I was like, well, I'm just going to close my business now because I'm the worst. Like, that was the truth there. But because I've done this for so long and I've built that muscle and I've been shit scared for so long, my body doesn't think twice, because it knows every time that there is magic on the other side.
Yeah. That's yes. First of all, I just want to go back to that sort of completely rational conclusion that you reached in nanoseconds.
So rational.
It's like, I'm being vulnerable. People must think that I'm terrible. I'm just going to close up. Close up shop. That's the only thing. That's the only option available to me. And like, yay. Like, loneliness makes us like world-class catastrophizers. Right.
Yes.
And of course it's not true, but of course, like, the experience within ourselves is.
Yeah.
But like, for me, there's so much like beauty and richness and like goodness in, in us being at our edge. And, beginning to then drop. And I love these words that you use, drop into our bodies, or drop into our body, and recognize sort of where we might be feeling the discomfort, where we might be feeling uneasy, where we might be feeling joy, where we might be feeling pride in the fact that we have, taken our underwear off.
Yeah.
It's like, shit, I'm proud of myself. I don't know what I'm doing now. It's all a bit weird and awkward, but I've done it. Yay,
Totally.
me.
Yeah.
And
That's like a high five in the mirror kind of moment.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's just like, chest puff up with pride. It's like, right, done it. I'm here for it now. I'm in.
Yeah. And that's when like you've got like you've done the first step, right, of doing the edgy thing. But then that's when like you got to breathe because you're going to be your body might be shaking because you're scared still, and like that's okay. We're allowed to feel that way. Like we're allowed to be shaking in our boots because that means that we're growing. That's like our cells, to be super esoteric. Like that's like our cells freaking re-vibrating something new, And um that requires a deep presence
Yeah.
with your body and with yourself. And this comes straight back to that mental the piece we were talking about around not running away. Because when you run away from whether it's your feelings, your emotions, and in my world, it's running away from sensations that you're experiencing in your body. When you're running away from those because you're avoiding them, then you don't give yourself, we don't give ourselves the ability to like hold space for ourselves in order to then move through this process of unpacking our loneliness, our hang-ups with our body, whatever it is, and starting to take one step at a time towards the man or the person, the human that we want to be.
Or that we are,
Yeah.
but we
Oh,
don't.
that's so much better. When you
That we,
said that we are,
mm,
I got like the this like almost like the Superman thing where you like take
yes.
off. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's all
Yeah.
there. It's fucking all there.
Yep. 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 And often other people can see it except for ourselves. We're the last people
Mm,
to see it. But
mm.
one thing here that I say is that first step to go to that scenario that you've talked about, that first step, going to the naked yoga studio, getting undressed, and then taking like the shorts off, then taking those first couple of steps, like, or turning around to face like into the room to go into the studio. They're the hardest,
Yeah.
but that requires you to do that. Like you, viewer, listener, Andreas, me, Phil. That requires us to do that in ourselves. But the next steps are ones that you don't do alone,
Very well said. It's
because
so true.
there's you.
And
There's
there's
you.
all the other in the naked yoga studio, there's all the other naked guys there who are also were once just as scared. And now, because they've been doing it for a while, or maybe it's only their first class too. So they're like, hold my hand, bitch, because I'm scared.
Yeah.
Like they're like, it's no biggie. We got you, baby. You're
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. So yes, I think this is so powerful. Like, not only is this so relatable, it's such a powerful visual metaphor,
Mm.
because in content that, like, from a few weeks ago, so this will be released in a few weeks, but from a few weeks ago, talking with Drummond Fulcher about living authentically. And I said the words that living authentically to me is like walking around naked.
Mm.
And some people will go, oh, no, no thanks. Like,
I was
um,
like, fuck yeah.
yeah. Or people will go, yep, yep. That, like, how you're presenting what you look like, how you like carry yourself, how you are in the world, like, yes, you know, I find you attractive. Like, I want to be with you. And I don't mean that in a sexual way or whatever, but, like, me being me attracts the people who will be attracted to me.
Yes. And the right people.
People that you need.
Yeah.
And then, but when we're trying to, present ourselves in a way that everybody in the world will always find us attractive,
Mm.
that's when we lose ourselves.
Yeah. Trying to be everything for everyone.
Yeah.
It doesn't work in personal life. It doesn't work in business and marketing. That's like one of the
No.
first lessons they'll tell you.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Yeah.
work.
No, it doesn't work. God, it doesn't stop me trying though. However,
Right? Been
yeah,
there. Been
yeah,
there.
yeah. So, Andreas, I'm really curious now, like, knowing that there's the viewer, listener is at that point now where they're beginning to grasp how, like, why some of the discomfort is there. The fear of judgment, the fear of being vulnerable, the fear of, being exposed, the fear of acknowledging what's within.
Yeah. They're running away from that feeling.
So, we've got that, we're at that point. I'm curious as we sort of round out the conversation, what are some, like, is there an exercise that me, the viewer, the listener, that we can all do as we're listening now
Mm.
that, can help? And, viewer, listener, if you feel comfortable, where you are and, it's legal, you might want to, I don't know, drop the
Take your
towel,
pants off.
take your pants off or something, but like, and, be you
Mm.
as your, and connect to you.
Mm.
This is an invitation to you to do that if you would like.
Yeah, I something is dropping in that I would love to share actually. And you can't do it if you're driving. So I'm just gonna say that right now.
Yeah.
So if you are driving, maybe just like come back and we'll be here for you.
Yeah.
And even though it's so welcome to take your pants off to get fully naked if you wanted to, and every state in between, like you can be so clothed, like you can go and grab a jacket and put more clothes on. I want you to be where you are. What is the truth, right? And just meet yourself there. If the vulnerability thing wants you to be fully naked, great. But if it wants you to be fully clothed or have a blanket on or something, like honor that. That's the compassion that and the grace for yourself that I was talking about before. This is going to go for, I'm going to try and make it really succinct. I'm going to condense it down into 3 or so minutes. I go a bit, maybe 4. It is an embodiment practice. You could think of it as a mindfulness practice. And shall we just do it?
Yep. Yeah. Let's do it.
Beautiful.
All right. I'm going to take my shirt off. This feels like it's calling me.
Oh my God, can I take mine off?
Please.
Ah,
Yeah.
I'll keep my pants on.
Okay.
I'll keep them on. This time. Wow. Already it feels like something has like shifted. Already I feel like there's like a layer that's been taken off. Mm.
Yep.
So wherever you are, just make sure your feet are on the ground. I'd say come to a chair, but you could be laying down, you could be standing up, whatever feels right. And just place your hands over your chest, right in the middle. And then take some nice big inhales through your nose and out exhales through your mouth. So you're going to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. And just keep breathing. And as you breathe, I want you to just become aware of what you're feeling underneath your palms. So maybe it's temperature of the skin, or maybe it's texture of the clothes. Whatever it is, maybe it's the breath filling the lungs and then releasing. Now imagine that as you breathe out, you're dropping an anchor from your head down the length of your spine all the way to your tailbone. And every time you breathe out, you're just slowly letting that anchor drop down the body, like you are releasing it off the boat into the water, and it's just dropping, falling, anchoring down into your tailbone all the way right down. And now with your awareness down in your pelvis, in your tailbone, see if you can just notice whatever sensations are around that area. Perhaps it's an internal feeling or sensation. Maybe it's the feeling of the chair under your seat. Maybe it's even arousal. Just allow what is to be there. Now, this is an optional step. If you feel comfortable to, you can place one hand just over your groin or your pelvis, so that one hand is on the heart and one is over the groin, the pelvis, or wherever feels right. It could even be your belly, your pubic bone. Or you can keep both hands at your chest. When you inhale, inhale into the bottom hand or into the pelvis. Feel the belly and then up to the top hand. And then out breath. Just 2 more breaths like this. We're going to deeply trust the body and just go with whatever comes straight away when I ask these questions. So the first question is, go ahead and place your hands on a place in your body that feels safe to you. And just notice where your hands want to move. Give yourself the permission. Maybe you're awkward and second guessing, it's okay. If nowhere came to your mind, nowhere came to your body innately, place your hands back on your heart. You're always going to be able to return to the center of your chest. Just take another breath here with your connection to that place that feels safe for you. And now I'm going to ask you to place your hands onto your body in a place that feels unsafe for you. And if it feels deeply unsafe, let's say it's your belly, then maybe you just go a little bit closer to your belly. And once again, if nothing comes to mind, just come back to the heart space. So for those listening, I am now sitting on my hands. And if you have placed your hands on a spot in your body that feels unsafe, uncomfortable, then all we're going to do is breathe and be present to this place in our body. And to just take 3 breaths, connecting with our touch to this place in our body. And if your hands are on your heart, allow that heart space to just love, to bring love into your body. And now all of us are going to re-find the heart space. We're going to join those of us who are already there. Take a big inhale through the nose and a big exhale through the mouth. And then if you can, we're going to inhale the arms up towards the sky, like you're taking a morning stretch, like you're reaching up. And then we'll bring the hands back down. Roll the shoulders a little bit. If your eyes naturally close down during that meditation or mindfulness practice, and in your own time, just blinking them back open again. Before we shift out, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge that some of you will have experienced that practice very easily, and others may have had a really hard time with that practice. Like you were all in your head. What the fuck is he talking about? I can't do this. I'm thinking about my dinner, and or maybe there was just so much anxiety around finding an unsafe place that you just couldn't move your hands. And that is a real intangible experience. And it's so valid to have had that experience. And this comes back to what we were saying before, Phil, that there is no one quick fix. This is a process. And I can guarantee you that if you continue to just do little things like that, eventually you will build more and more rapport and familiarity with your own body, the landscape of your own body, that you will be able to dive a little bit deeper into that practice.
That was astounding. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Such a pleasure.
Because yeah, I love the this is great podcasting where I can't think of the words, but kind of the intentionality of doing the body scan and the visual, but the powerful visuals of the anchor going down the spine. Just that really helped me.
Yeah.
And I've been practicing recently something that I've been learning, which is, standing in front of a mirror and looking at myself like into my eyes.
Edgy.
And yeah, right. I do this to the people I love, but I never do this to myself.
Yeah.
I see people. It's kind of like my superpower. I see people. But, when I'm looking at myself in the mirror, it's, maybe shaving or, trimming the eyebrows or like brushing the teeth or, putting face cream on or, squeezing a zit, whatever it is. Like, but it's like transactional. It's quick.
It's very functional.
That's the word. But this, so, looking into the mirror and I'm finding, taking the glasses off helps me sort of connect better with my eyes. But looking into my eyes and breathing 10 times. On the inhale, I love you. On the exhale, thank you.
I love that. I want to do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
such a great practice.
it's my invitation to you. There you go, Andreas, but also listener, viewer as well. And I often find, and I began smiling when you said, put your hand over, the middle of your chest, over your heart. And the thing that I felt is the thing that I always feel. And I do this like the I love you, thank you, with my hand on my heart, getting the towel out of the way here, but hand on my heart and feeling my heartbeat.
Mm.
And it's just not so, I can test my cardiovascular fitness. Like I've got an Apple Watch for that too. But this is the same heart that was beating like a short period of time after conception.
Mm. Oh, yeah.
And this is the same heart that got me through good times, tough times. It's the heart that's still here and the heart that will get me through until it stops.
Mm. Yeah, there was something in that for me. Thank you.
And it really is like,
Mm.
no matter, how in my head I might be, and I'm absolutely world champion in my headness.
Same.
and yeah, I get like, I don't know about you, Andres, but I get so cranky at myself. I'm like, physician, heal thyself.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
There's
no,
that
no.
there's that healer's wound where you're like constantly turning your healer's lens back onto yourself and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
like mission to just be imperfectly human.
Yeah. Yeah. The clusterfuck of humanity is what I call myself. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of freedom in that. But yeah, like
Mm.
coming, and this is something, listener, viewer, that I have to do. Some days are better than others,
Yeah.
but certainly it is an intention each day to be me. And that I love you, thank you, 3 times. So in and out, 10 breaths in and out, do that 3 times a day.
Mm.
So
Yes.
yeah, for me, that was, I smiled. So I'm like,
Mm.
oh, hello, heart. I'm having an awesome conversation, and the heart is still there doing its thing.
The heart center is always there for you. In yoga theory, the heart center, the center of your chest, the heart chakra, if you will, is it is the center of you. It's where the soul resides. And even when you're heartbroken, your heart is always there for you. There's a piece that you said around bad days that sparked something in me to share, which is that along, like when you're with body image, there are always going to be bad days, good days, meh days, somewhere in the neutral days, and fucking bad days. And I still have bad days. The difference being confident in your body, having body neutrality or body positivity, even, is not never having a bad body day. That's not what it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually about being able to hold yourself with presence, with compassion on the bad days. And I don't think it will ever be anything else. I never ever will tell somebody that I will teach them and guide them to have 100% body confidence every day of their life, because it's a lie. The hottest bodybuilders in the world have days where they're going, my 5% body fat should be 4.5%, right? It's a part of our humanness and it's totally normal. But being wise around that, rather than the victim of that is the difference. That is what body confidence is.
I'm letting that sink in.
Hmm.
I've noted that down because I feel that that's going to feature in like social media, because I feel that that will speak to the listener. It will speak to the viewer.
Yeah. Yes. Share it widely. The
Yeah.
more people that know, that feel that as the truth and stop striving for perfection in their body image, the better, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yes. Yes. I feel that there's similarities in what you're saying there, Andreas, in terms of, your relationship within your own body and loneliness.
Mm. Mm.
Because I will never say that listening to me, doing my like engaging in my services will cure your loneliness. Because
Mm.
frankly, you don't want your loneliness cured.
Mm.
You don't want your hunger cured. You want your hunger to be there to tell you to eat, because you need to eat to live. You want your thirst. You weren't thirsty last week and then decided to have a drink of water.
Mm.
And then when you're thirsty again, go, well, no, I've drunk some water before. I'm fine.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like if the desire, if you weren't thirsty, you'd never drink anything.
and you die.
Yeah.
If you were never lonely, you'd never go and get the connection that you need. And lo and behold, loneliness left untreated puts you at significantly higher risk of premature death.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, loneliness has, oh God, don't get me started. Like, loneliness has the effect, left unchecked. Loneliness is a antecedent, I think the word is,
Okay.
for depression and anxiety.
Mm.
In society, it's beginning to be okay to talk about depression and anxiety without the stigma, without the judgment. It's
Yeah.
okay to say, oh, I'm on antidepressants, I'm on an anti-anxiety medication or whatever. However, the taboo topic is, why are you on it?
Mm.
Why are you feeling depressed? Why are you? And that's a harder conversation. But it puts you at significantly higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease, diabetes, certain types of cancers.
Oh my God.
You know, one of the leading rates of death, certainly the leading rate of death for Australian men aged 18 to 35, is at their own hand.
Yes.
Why?
Mm. Yeah. And especially for LGBT people.
Yeah. Now we're getting into why I'm doing this.
Mm.
Then, because loneliness puts you in fight or flight,
Yes.
you have cortisol surging and adrenaline surging around your body. Weirdly, you see connection bids as a threat.
Hmm.
So that's why, like, the curmudgeon in the office, the person who is like the grumpy bastard in the office, right? Like, I've got content on this, but they're testing you. Because if you can survive that, they're testing you. Are you worthy of their connection? But it
Mm.
puts us in such fight or flight that we see things as a threat. And
Mm.
so we kind of shoot them down, kind of Star Wars style. Like, we shoot down bids of connection, but all the while we really want that connection, but we shoot it down. But it puts, like, your cardiovascular system under such stress. And the oft quoted study is that loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. This is not just a tweet. Like, this is not the minor thing. This is not something
Yeah.
that's like, what a like witty banter little subject. This is the shit. And if
Mm.
we're not talking about it, we're like, frankly, all of the yoga, all of the vitamins, all of the water that you drink, all of the weights that you lift, all of the achievements and all that mean absolutely nothing unless you are connected.
Yeah.
Means absolutely nothing. So something, I'm trying to remember the stats now, Andreas, but like um, obesity increases your chance of early death by 10%. Alcohol, by 20%.
Mm-hmm.
Smoking, around 50%.
Mm.
Loneliness is 70%.
Wow.
70.
Holy God.
So why do we have, despite people eating better, why do we have such high rates of of heart disease?
Yeah. And
You
it's
know,
like it surprises me and yet it doesn't, because the mind body connection is so powerful. And there's a lot of research on that too.
yeah,
Um, and without sidetracking into a completely new topic, I think like it's also a symptom of our modern world, you know,
yes,
as in a modern world with modern technology where like we have more connection but less vulnerability and less authentic connection that truly fills us up.
yeah,
Um, it's not a given anymore. It's not a given that the only way to connect to people is to go down to the hall and like go to a dance or something and be with real people, right? Like we can create the facade of connection for ourselves when really the deeper yearning, the thing beyond the edge, the thing that's vulnerable, the thing we have to hold ourselves through with love and compassion, like that is like something we actually have to work towards consciously.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. So that exercise that you did, like hand on your heart, it's like, remember that your heart is there and it's working for you. But are you making it work harder than it needs to
Mm.
through stress, through being in fight or flight because of loneliness that you may or may not recognize that you are experiencing? But if you press play on this content, kind of might have decided one way or another. Like this is not generally a topic that you sort of go, oh, this looks interesting. You're here because you suspect that you need to be here.
Yeah, I feel like such a great way of like an easy and quick way to work out like, are you operating out of some sort of like adrenaline based thing right now? Is to just be like, ask yourself why. That's like, why am I doing this?
Mm-hmm.
Why am I on Grinder? Why am I going to the gym? Why am I doing these things? Like, what are the true core desires here that are driving me? And if you need to take time to unpack that, that is where we come in, right? Like, that is like, it's pivotal, I
Yeah.
believe, because
Yeah.
that's what takes you out of adrenaline base, running around, like avoiding the things, like feeling like you have no time, like all of that. And actually stepping into a state of presence, which then begets vulnerability, connection, all the things.
Yeah.
Mm.
I love it. What a beautiful conversation this has been, Andreas.
So
How
good. I still have tea.
well
It's
that's what
cold and I'm
that's what
still
happens. That's what happens when you bring a 44-gallon drum of tea. My
I've been
coffee
holding
lasted
like for about 10 minutes to pee right now.
yeah. so so we can put you out of your misery. How can people find you if they want to know more? If they're in the Canberra area, if they're on Ngunnawal country,
Mm.
how can people find you?
Yeah. Um, in Canberra, I'm in Canberra very regularly. I teach Monday nights men's nude yoga, which is a fortnightly or bi-weekly nude yoga class. It is in Kingston. But I also do lots of one-on-one private tantric and yoga work as well. Often the men that are like, there's no fucking way in hell I'm stepping into a group yoga class. They'll come and work with me privately first. And then after a few classes, they're like, okay, now I'll take my pants off in front of 10 strangers, right?
Yeah.
And that's so valid. Like that's such a valid journey, right? I also work in Sydney periodically when I'm up there. So if you are in Sydney, then I can work with you in person. I'm running a retreat up in that region, which is actually booked out in September. So that's a thing. And I work online as well. So even if you're listening to this and you're in France or you're in the UK or in the US and you want to just explore embodiment and tantra, we can work together online. My handle, my @, my social media is @andreas.embodiment. I'm on Twitter, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. Or just head to my website, which is andreasembodiment.com. I've got like a really nice 15-minute freebie meditation that you could do. And I've got some pretty sexy free classes that you could try out as well, just to like to start the journey, right? You can start in your lounge room or your bedroom and get a feel for it.
Beautiful. Thank you so very much. I'll put links to all of that in the show notes.
Yeah.
But Andreas, just thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for courageously stepping into the space. I want to recognize specifically your courage. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
Mm.
And thank
Thank
you for
you.
giving us a tool to help us drop into ourselves. For all of that, I'm so tremendously grateful.
Thank you. Really receiving that and reflecting that back to you. I'm just so grateful to have been welcomed onto your podcast, onto your YouTube channel, because you're doing amazing things and you have been having amazing conversations with incredible people. And I'm really, really humbled to be one of those people.
There is
Yeah. So
no doubt in my mind the humility is not needed. Like absolutely, absolutely, here for real conversations about the stuff that matters.
yeah.
Thank you so very much, Andreas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, YouTube. How awesome was that? You might want to, I don't know, like robe up or not. Like
Take a cold shower, whatever you need.
But thank you so much, YouTube. Until next time, be awesome. And if you've got any questions, comments, anything, all the things, like you know where to put it, and we'll respond. All right. Thanks so much. See you later.